It's Trev the Rev. Trev the Rev Show. It's Trev the Rev. Trev the Rev Show. It's Trev the Rev. Trev the Rev Show. And it's no Vicar. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. Kachunga, my friends, Kachunga. I am Trev the Rev, and I ain't no Vicar. Welcome to the show. And before I go into the usual blah, 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 let's start with the joke of the day. Hey Google, what's today's joke?
Here we go. What do you call a panda with no teeth? A gummy bear.
Gummy bear, bouncing here and there and everywhere. Yeah, no, that's a bad joke. That was a bad joke. So we will start the show. But if you've enjoyed the show, please hit that like button. If you didn't, if you don't like it, or at least I'll know. If you haven't watched, if you want to see this show again, and you want to know it's coming out, please hit the subscribe button, which is just down there. And if you want to know when it's coming out, just ring that bell. And it'll let you know when this video is coming out. Ooh. Well, we're going to start today's show, the show, where I thought I'd talk about a couple of mysteries, because normally I go to the unexplained mysteries, but today I'm not. Well, one is, sort of, but what I'm talking about are two legends, I suppose, based in the UK, the United Kingdom, England, London, as a matter of fact. That's why I thought I'd give you a hint of the clue. It's a tale of two Jacks. The first Jack I'm talking about is this is not a legend. This did happen, unfortunately, in our past. Now I'm talking about Jack Ripper. Yes. Now, well, I thought I'd talk about this guy because he's actually he was never caught. But I'll go into it. So, shall we begin? About Jack? If you're easily scared, keep watching. It'll be a laugh. Someone in London murdered and mutilated a number of prostitutes during the autumn of 1888. The press went into a frenzy, not a transformer. Politicians pointed a finger at each other. Hoaxers polluted the investigation, and one of several nicknames stuck: Jack the Ripper. Over a century later, Jack's identity has never been wholly proven. There isn't even a leading suspect. Most aspects of the case are still debated, and the Ripper is an infamous cultural bogeyman. The Ripper's identity has never been established, and people have never stopped looking. The publishing rate average is a new book a year since 1888, although most of these have come into recent decades. That's decades, not decades. Unfortunately, the wealth of Ripper source material, letters, reports, diaries, and photographs provide enough for detailed and fascinating research. But too few facts for any incontrovertible conclusion. Just about everything about Jack the Ripper is open to debate, and the best you can get is a consensus. Is a consensus. People, I didn't see the dot on my notes. I write my notes and I didn't see the dot. Go back up. So you can tell it's live, people. So you can tell this video is live because mistakes happen. Ooh. People are still finding new suspects or new ways to reframe old suspects, and books are still flying off the shelves. Literally, they take off. Stop leaving. Hello, Craig, mate. How you doing, mate? People are still finding new suspects or new ways to reframe old suspects, and books are still flying off the shelves, quite literally. There is no it's a mystery. Additionally, Jack the Ripper is considered to have killed 5 women, all London prostitutes, in 1888. Mary Ann Queen Nicholas on the August 31st, Annie Chapman on September the 8th, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Endowers on September the 30th, and Mary Jane Kelly in November the 9th. In practice, there is no agreed list. Hello, Craig, mate. How you doing? I did say hello to you. I know you made me lose my track of where I am. Well done, boy. Well done. Sometimes the most popular change is to discount Stride or Kelly, sometimes adding Martha Tabron, killed August the 7th. Authors naming more than 8th have achieved very little consensus. At the time, Polly Nicholas was sometimes considered the second or third person to be killed by the same person. And plenty later investigators have searched the world in search of similar killings to see if the Ripper has moved on. Ripper! 3 at the moment, mate. 3 are watching live. You're one of them. Don't know who the other 2 are yet. Ripper generally killed by strangling his victims, then laying them down and cutting the arteries in their throats. This was followed by a varied process of mutilation, during which parts of the bodies were removed and kept because Jack did this quickly, often in the dark, and because he seemed to have great anatomical knowledge. Say that when you're drunk. People have assumed the Ripper had a doctor's or surgeon's training. As with much of the case, there is no consensus. A contemporary thought him simply a blunderer. There have been many accusations that the missing organs weren't stolen from the bodies by the Ripper, but by people dealing with them later. Evidence this is scant. During the autumn and winter of 1888-89, a number of letters circulated amongst the police and newspapers, all claiming to be from the Whitechapel murderer. These included the From Hell letter, and one accompanied by part of a kidney, which may have matched a kidney taken from a steak kidney pie. No, matched a kidney taken from one of the victims. Like everything Jack, we're not 100% sure. Ripperologists consider most, if not all, the letters to be hoaxes. Their impact at the time was considerable. If only, I think, talking about work now, are we? I believe there's a size 11 coming in on Monday, if all goes according to plan, Craig. I believe. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, back. If only because one contained the first use of Jack the Ripper, a nickname the papers swiftly adopted, which is now anonymous or synonymous. The Ripper killings were neither obscure nor ignored at the time. There was gossip. I didn't, Lou did. There was gossip and fear in the streets. Questions at high levels of government and offers of rewards and resignations. When, just to let you know what's going on here, one of the people watching the show works at the same place that I do, and he's talking about work whilst I'm doing the show. Hey, there you go, mate. Political reinforcers used the Ripper name in arguments, and policemen struggled with the limited techniques of the time. Indeed, the Ripper case remained high profile enough for many of the police involved to write private accounts years later. However, it was the media who made Jack the Ripper. 1888, literacy was common amongst the crowded citizens of London, and newspapers reacted to the Whitechapel murderer, whom they initially christened Leather Apron. Yeah, I never knew that. Until I was taking notes, I never knew that was his original name, Leather Apron. Mine doesn't sound quite as bad as Jack the Ripper, does it? Anyway, with the frenzy we expect from modern tabloids, stirring opinions, fact and theory, along with the properly hoaxed Ripper letters, together create a legend which seeps into popular culture. From the very start, Jack doubled as a figure from the horror gene, a bogeyman to scare your kids. A century later, a century later, Jack the Ripper is still hugely famous world over. An unknown criminal at the centre of a global manhunt, but he is more than that. He is the focus of novels, films, musicals, and even a 6-inch high model plastic figure. Jack the Ripper was the first serial killer adopted by the modern media age. And he's been at the forefront ever since, mirroring the evolution of Western culture. Other serial killers who have murdered prostitutes include New York's most prolific murderer, Earl Rifkin. I never heard of him. It's extremely unlikely anyone will ever be able to use the existing evidence to prove, beyond all reasonable doubt, who Jack the Ripper was. No idea what that means. I want to know what that means. And I'm talking to the chat on the side. While people are still uncovering material, the discovery of something unarguable has to be regarded as a long shot. Fortunately, the mystery is so fascinating because you can do your own reading, draw your own conclusions, and with some critical thinking, generally have as much chance of being right as anybody else. Suspects range from people to detectives at the time suspects, such as George Chapman, a whole gallery of strange suggestions, which include no less than Lewis Carroll, a royal doctor, Inspector Abberline himself, and someone who even blamed a relative decades later after finding some tenuous items. That's the information on Jack the Ripper. Now, I actually remember I went to London a few. I've been to London a few years, so many years. But one of the trips we went to was this. Wasn't the Waxworks? It was London Dungeons, and they did an article in there on Jack the Ripper. It was actually quite interesting. Some of the things he did. Very scary person. Very scary person. I'm glad I wasn't around in those days because the fact that to this day no one knows who he actually. We've had rumours. They've had close thoughts who he is, but no one can actually prove who Jack the Ripper was. That's the scary. It's like the in America they got the Zodiac killer where he was writing down in code. Um, no one actually knows who the Zodiac killer is. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. Countries have got their own killers who have never been caught, who are so sharp that they've managed to stay away, and it makes you think how scary these people actually are. And we're going to go from one Jack to another Jack. Now, this guy was around before Jack the Ripper terrorised London. Spring-heeled Jack. Spring-heeled Jack was tormenting citizens with his claws and tight-fitting clothing, sort of like one of my guys at work does. Before Jack the Ripper began his reign of terror, there was another mysterious entity terrorising the streets of London. His name was Spring-heeled Jack. Spring-heeled Jack was, and he's not called that because he was born in April either. Spring-heeled Jack was an unidentified assailant that began tormenting London in 1837. In the very first recorded sighting, a servant named Mary Stevens reported walking to Lavender Hill when a figure leaped out at her, grabbing her and scratched at her with his claws. Yeah, I bet you was you. Most probably was you. Training to be in the army. When a figure leaped out, grabbing her, scratching her. Every now and then you can see I'm going over the words because I've got to go back to see who it was. Back to see who it was. Her screams drew the attention of passersby, searched for the assailant but never able to locate him. Following this first account, several other young women reported similar sightings. Throughout suburban London, according to early reports, the attacker was described as a shape-shifting figure, ghostly in appearance and with gloves in the shape of claws. Rumours of the strange figure swirled around London for about a year, with the press giving him the nickname Spring-Heeled Jack. He later got a job on the roundabout at Zebedee. The story was not thought to be anything more than exaggerated gossip or ghost stories until an encounter the following year. In February of 1838, a young woman named Jane Aslop claimed that a gentleman wearing a cloak rang her doorbell late at night. He then took off his cloak to reveal tight-fitting clothes that resembled white oilskin. Then he breathed blue and white flames into her face and began to cut at her clothes with his claws. Luckily, Alsop's sister was able to scare the attacker, making him flee from the scene. Oh God! Oh! A man named Thomas Milbank was arrested and tried for the attack on Jane Aslop, although due to his insistence that the attacker could fire, he was not convicted. Just a few days later, a similar account was reported by an 18-year-old woman named Lucy Scales. Her mind was off balance. She was out walking with her sister in Limehouse when a figure leaped out at her from an alley and blew flames into her face, leaving her in a state of hysterics. The attacker left the scene and was never found. Several men were brought in for questioning. Was it you? No, weren't me, Gov. Weren't me, Gov. Following the accounts of Jane Aslop and Lucy Scales, Spring-Heeled Jack sightings were reported all around England, even regions parts of Scotland, where he was known as Wee Bloody Skill-Heeled Jack. Snuff that one up, didn't I? Wee Bonny Heeled Jack. Soon. One, yes. Tax with a haggis, you know. Tax with a haggis. His victims were most commonly described as young women, and they all described similar accounts of a mysterious man, thin and tight-fitting clothing, red eyes, and claws for hands. Like Freddy Krueger. As a rumour spread, the story of Spring-Heeled Jack began to take on a life of its own. Many plays, novels, and penny dreadfuls featuring Spring-Heeled Jack were written throughout the second half of the century, cementing his status as a figure of urban legend. As time went on, reports of Spring-Heeled Jack sightings grew even more bizarre. Perhaps fueled by popular fictitious accounts, even more superhuman traits were attributed to him, including the ability to leap through the air and over buildings. No, we're not talking about Superman either. However, as the stories become more outlandish, the threat of the attacker becoming less frightening at the turn of the century, he was sort of a less than real entity and more of a figure of folklore. The final Spring-Heeled Jack sighting was reported in Liverpool in 1984, just before the Beatles started working. Beatles. It remains unclear if Spring-Heeled Jack was a real man who terrorised the streets of London, a case of mass hysteria, an urban legend, or simply a ghost story that got out of control. Whatever its basis in reality, the legend of the Victorian demon of London still lived on in pop culture today. Culture today. Woo! Now, that's the stories of the two scary Jacks. One is pure legend. It happened. This Spring-Heeled Jack actually exists. Now, people reported seeing him as he's being real, but did he exist? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Jack the Ripper, it makes you think that it's someone who's so scary he was never caught. You know, you knew he existed, he was never caught. It's a good job he's not around today, isn't it? Mind you, the coronavirus might knock him out, you know. But, That's the scary stories. What did you think? Did you enjoy the two steps, the scary information on the two Jacks? Who do you think they were? It was been it's been rumoured that Jack the Ripper was actually a lord from America, I believe, was one of the rumours that went out. So who do you think you are? I would love to hear your thoughts on the actual person. Indeed, who was he? Who was he? Well, we'll never know. We will never know, unfortunately, because the time has passed. And even though with our modern techniques of finding the answers to the clues, and before anyone says it, yes, I am a medium, but I can't use my medium abilities to find out who they were. I'd love to. I would love to find out who these guys were so we can go back in time and say, hey, you, no, no, don't do that. Yeah. See, you can't, because you can't change the past. So, so on that note of the two Jacks, I would like to say, if you've enjoyed the show, if you have enjoyed this show, please hit and, and, and if you haven't done so already, hit my subscribe button, which is just down there, and ring that bell, and you'll know when it's coming out. So, on that note, open up, my friends. Until next time, this is Trev the Rev signing off, and I ain't no. Bye bye.